Greeting, introduction, explanation, disclaimer. Let's talk about Saviors. This release feels very different for Green Day. Of course, the most obvious reason that this release feels different for me personally is its quality. Green Day's been on kind of a shaky path for like 2 decades now. When you amass such a gigantic fan base and a broad audience who listens to your music, it's going to be hard to please all of them. But it seems that Green Day has been having trouble pleasing even a small majority of their fans with their recent albums. For me, I'm able to get at least something out of each release just because I love Billie Joe Armstrong's vocals so much. So because of that, I find myself having at least a good time with even their most universally hated albums, like Father of All, which if you listen to the internet, you'd think that that album consisted of Mike Dirnt farting into a microphone for 30 minutes, when really it's just a decent, although forgettable album by Green Day. And that's probably what's most disappointing about that album and Revolution Radio and big parts of the trilogy, is that it's just not very memorable. So with Saviors, my biggest hope was that I would find something memorable about it. And it's only been a day, and I'm vaguely aware that my opinion on Saviors is going to be tainted by recency bias. I've been following this album's rollout for a while and listening to interviews with the band talking about Saviors and their career as a whole, and I've been finding myself laughing at the predicament that Green Day finds themselves in 2024. And that predicament is the reason why I think Saviors is going to feel so different for so many of us. Let's think back even a few weeks before the lead single to this album was released. Public perception of Green Day and the general sentiment around this band was that they torched their careers with an embarrassing rollout of an equally embarrassing album. The world, and me to some extent, were brainwashed into thinking that Father of All was an unmitigated disaster of an album. And I'm not trying to be an annoying contrarian here. I think it's their worst album, or at least tied for their worst album. But a 0 out of 10? Really? A 0. The most atrocious part of Father of All, and I do think that this has a big influence on public perception of this record, is the absolutely horrific album artwork. But if you're Green Day and you're smart, which Green Day is, you realize that your next album has a built-in comeback kid story behind it. You can't get back on the horse if you don't fall off of it in the first place. So maybe you try a little harder with this new record. You go back to basics a bit. Maybe you decide to get the whole band in the studio at the same time, playing songs together. And maybe this time around you even have a chip on your shoulder and you want to prove that you still rock. That's all speculation, but it does seem like Green Day is actually genuinely excited about Saviors. Like they know that they have something with this album. They're doing pop-up shows in bars and shows on the subway. Genuinely really cool things for a big band to do. Green Day is doing it. On top of that, they're giving really heartfelt and honest interviews talking about this album. All of these things in this marketing cycle, with Green Day going the extra mile, have effectively got me on the hype train. Even if right now I am slightly affected by hype, I've been really enjoying listening to this album. Realistically, I don't think it's way better than Revolution Radio or even Father of All. It's not like 10 times or 100 times better than those albums, but it does sound way better. And it's slightly different in all of the right ways. Maybe it's just me, but their last few albums had a flatness or a dullness to their sound, like some of the knobs in the studio weren't turned to the right setting or something. But Saviors sounds very full, well-rounded, balanced, pleasant, and all of those are just me trying to describe the same feeling that I get when listening to this album. And that feeling is that when I turn it all the way up, it just sounds right. It sounds like I'm in the perfect position listening to the band play at the best concert venue. Each instrument just meshes together perfectly. I might even go as far as to say that it sounds like Mike and Trey are in the band again. That might sound like a weird thing to say because of course they've always been in the band, but here they really sound prominent in this album. Like I don't have to squint with my ears to try and find the bass, and I can feel the force behind the drum hits. Finally, everyone's instruments get moments to shine. When I first heard the song Coma City, I was hooked from the intro. I don't know how else to say this, but I thought that the song was about to pop off and go hard. But this leads me to what I think is the biggest weakness in the album. I feel like the vocal melodies and the hooks and the lyrics are the clear weak link on this album. Don't get me wrong, Billy's vocals sound great though. I'm most bitter about it on Coma City because the guitars and the drums are so top-notched and then are ruined by a very bland chorus. I actually like the lyrics on Coma City, but the first instance of the chorus brings this song to a screeching halt. Again, I love the sound of Billy's vocals on this record. We even get some shoutier cuts like on Bobby Socks that sound really neat. But that shouty chorus sounds awesome with questionable lyrics. They still sell it and I'm jamming out to it as long as I don't question what I'm singing. The same goes for Corvette Summer. I like the bones of that song, but man, the lyrics might have needed another pass. I find myself really connecting with the personal cuts on here, like Goodnight Adeline and Dilemma and Father to Son. Living in the 20s is perfect across the board. I have no notes for that one. As a whole, I think Savior sounds great, but at times it feels kind of corporate and impersonal lyrically, which is a bummer. All in all, I liked this album a lot. I'm a pretty easy to please Green Day fan, and I'm just excited that this one has some memorable songs in it. But I'd love to hear what you think. Let's chat about this album in the comments, and I will see you all in the next video.